On October 3rd, 1993, two U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters were shot down during the Battle of Mogadishu. 8 years later, the film Black Hawk Down portrayed the battle from many different viewpoints of some of the soldiers who fought in it. While the film has been praised for its realism, some have criticized its accuracy. But are they right to do so? How accurate is Black Hawk Down? The film's opening frame states that it is based on real events, but the very next one is the quote, "Only the dead have seen the end of war," which they attribute to Plato. This is incorrect, however, as the quote was by the early 20th century philosopher George Santayana. It then follows with some basic information about the civil war in Somalia and the UN and US involvement with it. And though the information lacks specific details, it is all accurate. Before we go into the actual movie, one thing that many people consider to be the biggest inaccuracy of the movie runs throughout it, but does not affect its plot, and that is the actors who portray the inhabitants of Mogadishu. Mogadishu is a large city on the coast of Somalia in Africa, and Somali organizations have many problems with the film, and several called for a boycott. One of their chief complaints was the complete lack of Somali actors in the movie, as well as the language spoken by them being inaccurate to what is actually spoken on the Horn of Africa. So you can keep that in mind while we continue on to the opening scenes of the movie, where the U.S. Army is conducting an intelligence gathering mission to locate Osman Ali Addo, an arms dealer supporting the self-proclaimed president of Somalia, Mohammed Farah Aidid. In the film, an informant for the U.S. marks the top of his car with duct tape so that it can be identified by satellites to pinpoint Addo's location. According to people involved with the mission, they really did mark his car, but it was just a precaution in case their first plan didn't work. They were actually able to track Addo's movements with a GPS tracker hidden in his cane. Later on, the American forces capture Addo quickly and relatively easily, and the tension of the scene is downplayed by Addo smirking at the Americans as they approach him, and even continuing his phone conversation and smoking his cigar. Addo himself has refuted the portrayal of his capture, saying that it didn't convey the violence of the attack, and that multiple people were hurt and even killed during it. And Howard Wasden, one of the Navy SEALs who captured him, said he was not calm and laid back as he appears in the film, but was afraid they were actually sent to kill him, not capture him. Nevertheless, Addo was captured and interrogated by American officials, which was followed by the decision to send a force of 160 men, 12 land vehicles, and 19 aircraft to capture two more of Aidid's top advisors. The mission was intended to be quick and over in just 30 minutes. However, that plan was quickly derailed as heavier than expected resistance from the local militia and civilians barricaded roads, forcing the vehicle convoy to take a longer route. And of course, not long after, the disaster the film is named for occurred. First, Black Hawk helicopter Super 6-1 was shot down, and 20 minutes later, Super 6-4 was also shot down. And the efforts to rescue the crashed helicopter crews extended the mission overnight. The following majority of the movie is one continuous and hectic battle scene that is difficult to gauge the accuracy of, as even those involved don't know all the details of what really happened. A few things we know with relative certainty include the groupings of individual soldiers as they broke up into smaller units, the movement of those units throughout the city, and the time and location of important events, such as attacks on the convoy and the deaths of American soldiers. One sequence that differs from reality is the scene at night where Staff Sergeant Eversman and others used strobe lights to mark the location of enemy units so that air support could target them. But in real life, the Rangers actually marked their own position, and the air support targeted everything else in the area. Towards the end of the film, as the American troops are retreating to a safe zone at a Pakistani-built stadium in the north, several soldiers are forced to run on foot behind the convoy out of the hostile zone, in what became known as the Mogadishu Mile. The real mile was a lot less dramatic. Beginning with, the plan was always to have wounded on vehicles and the healthy on foot. And according to one soldier who participated, it wasn't so much of a run as it was a fast walk in an organized formation. Also, the soldiers did not walk to the stadium directly, but to a vehicle convoy waiting for them south of the hostile zone, the opposite direction of the stadium. As the movie closes, it gives us some more information about what followed the battle, including the names of the fallen American soldiers, all of which are accurate, but it also lists the death toll of the Somalis as 1,000, which is an estimate that varies wildly between sources, with U.S. officials putting the number as high as 2,000, but UN and Somali officials putting it around 200 to 350. The film also completely leaves out the casualties of the Malaysian and Pakistani forces that supported American troops, both of whom suffered one death. It also says that captured pilot Michael Durant was released after 11 days, which is true, but it does not mention that the bodies of several American soldiers were also returned at this time. It continues with President Bill Clinton ordering a withdrawal from Somalia less than a month after the battle, which some say is misleading, as it was not a single order, and the U.S. Army would not leave the country till March of the following year. The final piece of information is about the death of Aidid in 1996, and says General Garrison retired the day after, strongly implying that his retirement was because of Aidid's death. But it is possible that this was just a coincidence. Unlike most non-fiction movies, Black Hawk Down was released less than a decade after the events it was based on, and that has to be taken into account when people comment on the accuracy or inaccuracy of certain elements. For instance, at the time of the film's release, the president of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf, said the film downplayed the importance of Pakistani involvement, but Musharraf was also the general in charge of Pakistan forces during the Battle of Mogadishu. Another factor that appeared to affect the film was the fact that it was released less than a month after the 9/11 terror attacks in New York carried out by Al-Qaeda, who were suspected of training some of the Somali militia that the U.S. fought in Mogadishu. Brendan Sexton, an actor who appeared in the film, said that the dialogue where the soldiers questioned the United States' involvement in Somalia were cut out of the final film. When you see a movie right when it comes out, it can be easier to understand the filmmaker's decisions. But for a movie released even just 18 years ago, at the time of this recording at least, it can also be easy to overlook influences that could drastically change the context of historical events, no matter how old. Which might be an idea to keep in mind the next time you watch a movie based on real events. But that's my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what other movies to look at next. Thanks for watching.